What's up, Buzz Nation? Welcome to I'm a Little Buzz, the show where we bring a little life to business.
I'm Rob Schauger, and I've never seen Tiger King.
I'm Al Kutri, and I hate roller coasters.
And I'm John Timmerman, and I'm terrible at holding my breath underwater. And we are the founders of Noble Digital Workshop on September 17th, 2020, and Noble 2020 2.0, presented by Bankers Healthcare Group on April 8th, 2021. So if you like Gary Vaynerchuk, go to noble2020.com for more details because he is our keynote speaker on April 8th. In today's show, we'll be chatting with Josh Kilmer-Purcell and Brent Ridge, founders of Beekman 1802, about how to build a company that outlasts the founders and why they are not huge fans of Shark Tank. But first, Al's got some announcements.
So this is my favorite part of the show where I present our weekly sponsor and our episode sponsor, and it's up to you to decide whether I made it up and it's fake and complete bullshit or whether it's very, very real. And nobody ever knows but me. So please comment whether you think it's real or if it's fake. This week's episode is brought to you by Underbread, all the wonder of bread, but under 10 carbs to help you shred. So again, Underbread, thank you so much. All the wonder of bread, but under 10 carbs to help you shred. Next very important announcement.
Damn, you're good.
It's Underbread. Look it up, maybe. The next important announcement is if you want tickets to our event in April, as John said, April 8th, 2021, go to noble2020.com. You can get tickets there. But the deal of the century, the best deal in the world ever is to get some wine and then get a free ticket. So if you go to empathywines.com, which you can access through our website as well, and you go order 12 bottles of wine in any capacity, they have cases or 3-packs, whatever, but 12 bottles will get you a free front section premier seating ticket to an all-day amazing business conference, completely free, comped to you, and you get 12 bottles of wine. So it's like absolute no-brainer. I say that every week. No-brainer. I'll say it until the end of time. But that's how you get tickets. And if you want like the big baller section of the event where you do meet and greets and VIP packages and you get to be around the VIP roundtable, meet Gary Vaynerchuk and 19 other very, very influential business people, you would buy 20 cases of wine. And all the info is on our website, noble2020.com. You can check that out and hopefully see you there.
Yeah. Super exciting. Today's show, we have some big players here in the CPG world. They've built an amazing brand. Josh and Brent founded Beekman 1802 in 2008 after purchasing the historic Beekman farm in Sharon Springs, New York, where they started making goat milk soaps, of all things, gourmet cheeses. Today, the company has over 130 employees and is recognized as one of the most successful lifestyle brands in America by Nasdaq, Inc. magazine, the Wall Street Journal. I mean, these are big media outlets. Their beauty and home and gourmet products are sold throughout premium retail partners around the globe, including Williams-Sonoma, Bloomingdale's, Anthropologie. In 2019, they set a record for the largest beauty brand launch in the combined 37-year history of both HSN and QVC. I'm really excited, guys. Really excited.
It's huge.
Unbelievable.
Over 45,000 people visit their flagship store and festivals each year in rural Sharon Springs, New York. I mean, we're talking about a big brand, a super successful brand, lots of distribution out of a very small town. Buzz Nation, please welcome Josh and Brent.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
We're doing great. And we're just laughing at our dog who's decided right now is the time to play with her squeaky toy.
We can never do an interview without underdoing squeaky toys.
Oh, she's got a show, you know, who's
like
the dog of the house.
Hey,
We'll put some graphics in, send us a picture of the dog. We'll fit the dog into the show and post.
Yeah.
Great.
Guys, you forgot to introduce me.
Yeah. Can we just talk about your in one of your things you said your real name is Steven? Is that true?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes. That's right. It is.
Yes, I know. You acted surprised.
You're like,
Who, me? Me?
Like that?
And he said, "What a fantastic name,
It is. It
It's
is.
like Dr. Drake Ramore."
Yeah. I grew up in the South, and we often would name people, call people by the middle name, and
Okay.
the first initial as I don't know. I guess it made you sound more prestigious. So when I was a practicing physician, all of my business cards and all of my placards said S. Brent Ridge, MD.
I
Which,
love it.
I just think that sounds like a soap opera, Doctor. Dr. Brent Ridge.
Yeah, Brent Ridge.
So what would we all be? What would we all be? Rob, what would you be?
W.
R-
Robert Schauger.
Oh, that's got a ring.
W. Oh, so your middle name's Rob?
No, isn't the middle initial come first?
No. For your first name initial,
Okay.
Yeah.
then your middle name, then your last name.
Oh, R. William Schauger.
R. William Schauger.
Ooh.
Mine would be
Sounds.
A. Francis Kutry. Nothing.
Oh.
There's 0 ring, I think, to that.
Yeah, but they all sound a little bit more prestigious, like you said.
Right.
I'd be J. Thomas Timmerman.
Ooh.
Yes. I mean,
Sir J. Thomas.
this would take it to a whole new level.
Left.
All right, fellas, we got new names for the show.
There it is.
There we have it. Well, listen, fellas, this is the time when we cheers to something special. And right now, let's cheers to life, love, lots of laughter, and going in for the handshake when the other person wants a fist bump. Just a little awkward, but cheers.
Cheers. Just have a glass in between your hand and the next person's hand.
Yeah, I hate when that happens.
Oh,
Amen. Cheers.
boom. Then it makes it okay. But listen, before we dive into some of the really questions that I know the three of us are dying to know about the brand and how you've built it, let's get to know you a little bit more in a little session we call the pregame.
The pregame.
That's that one up. But Al, tell them all about the pregame.
Pregame, super simple. Rapid fire, boom, boom, boom. First thing that comes to your mind. It doesn't matter. There are no rules. There are no points. Either way, everyone's a winner. Ready?
Yep.
Chocolate milk or white milk?
Oh, chocolate.
Chocolate.
Favorite holiday and why?
Thanksgiving. I like to eat.
Love it.
Easter candy.
Yes. Favorite,
Both good.
favorite sitcom?
Ooh, Schitt's Creek.
Oh.
Golden Girls.
Good. Love it. What's the saying?
All over it.
What is it? Dorothy in the streets, Blanche in the sheets.
Yeah.
Is that an old saying?
That's an official thing. Yeah. Pizza, thin crust or deep dish?
Oh, deep dish.
Thin crust.
Ooh, there you go.
Deep dish isn't even pizza.
I agree. Current celebrity crush?
Ooh, current celebrity crush.
Rob Lowe, now and forever.
Really?
Always been.
Always
Always.
Rob Lowe.
And Perkins.
I mean, when I was young, we didn't have a lot of sex tapes, so it was pretty much him or nothing.
Okay. Duly noted. Duly noted. Celebrity crush?
Celebrity crush. I don't know.
Really?
Well, you know what? I'll say, Josh. I mean, everybody knows this. I've said it many times before. One of my
It's just weird.
One of my former employers was Martha Stewart, and I always had a crush on Martha from the time I was like 10 years old and looking through Living, my mom's copy of Martha Stewart Living. So
I don't think you know what crush means.
Okay. All right. I didn't see that coming. Martha Stewart, celebrity crush. Brent, did you sing a song this morning?
Oh, I'm sure. I actually did.
Well,
I was singing Chandelier by Sia.
Oh, that's a tough one. There's some.
I got the hook there.
Yeah, you went for it this morning. Okay.
Al, do you know that with the saxophone? Do you know that tune?
Well, I mean, I do. Yeah, I'm very familiar with it.
Of course you do.
I mean, maybe we could end the show with a little duet.
Do it.
Maybe.
I can do the dance too from the video.
Oh, yeah. Do you have the wig that goes like?
I have it all. I can do it.
Okay. Fashion.
That's it. Part two.
Yeah, right. Fashion or function?
Function.
Function.
Fill in the blank. I want to be.
Retired.
Younger.
Okay. Toilet
Two
paper.
opposite ends of the spectrum.
Toilet paper. Over or under?
Over.
over, but we just got a bidet. So
We're paper.
Oh, we talked about this like on one of the first podcasts. We
We
talked
have a
about
paperless office now.
You went paperless office. Wow. What'd you talk about, John?
was it an attachment? Was it an attachment, or did you go full?
we have this crazy Kohler toilet that like the seat goes up as soon as you walk in.
It heats itself.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
That's
know exactly
living.
which one you're talking about. I've looked into it, and
That's living.
It's on the list.
That's right. That's right.
Last book you read?
I just finished up reading Michelle Obama's Becoming.
Okay.
I'm reading one about the plague. I can't remember the name of it. The Wonderful Year or something. It's about the last plague in the 1600s. It's good.
Oh, but I also will say that when the pandemic started and when we first went on lockdown, I started reading Harry Potter because I had never read them and read them all.
Okay.
I'm glad that I could mark that off of my list of accomplishments that I finally read Harry Potter.
I cannot mark that off. Can't get into that.
Yeah.
Okay. Greatest advice you've ever received?
Oh, so much. You know what? The one that always sticks with me is waste not, want not.
And I'll say, the greatest advice is our own motto, which is work hard, never quit, and help your neighbor. And with those three things, success is guaranteed.
For sure.
Fantastic.
Love it.
Worst advice you've ever received?
Oh, basically, it's the idea. It's that go for it idea that you should just do whatever you want to do. Like you should always really sort of plan for things, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Brent's like,
I never got bad advice.
you've never gotten bad advice?
I don't think so. I'm a very positive person, so I would never interpret anything as bad advice. I would say, oh, okay, and then figure out, what the
Learn from it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then last question. No, not last question. Favorite animal, favorite farm animal, and why?
Oh, farm dog.
Well, goats, really.
Well,
They're the MVPs.
goats.
Very, very important.
Favorite
Yeah.
goat name? Do you name them?
Oh,
Yeah.
Farmer John names every single goat on the farm. Probably.
You know, it's funny. So there's generally like up to 200 baby goats a year.
So he starts running out of names by the end.
So my favorite goat name he ever came up with was Taco.
Oh,
Just
that's cool.
Taco.
Or no, this year there was Stardust.
Mhm.
Okay.
And there's always something like Sparkles and, because
Yeah.
Farmer John is gay too. So he comes up with a lot of gay sounding goat names.
Okay.
I'm sure there's
My favorite
probably
favorite would be the pair,
The
Which
pear.
one?
Taco and Sparkles.
Oh.
Sparkle Taco.
Sparkle Taco.
Yeah, and you can just
Yeah,
rename
sparkling
them.
taco.
You can re-gift or recycle names. I think like George Foreman.
Oh no, no.
Not
You can't-
John.
no.
No,
Always
everything's different.
fair.
Al, you're ruining the creativity of naming.
I know. I'm terrible. My kids will all be named Al or George. Last question, Josh. How do we get a sample of homemade grandma's chicken and dumplings?
Mm.
You're gonna have to come by the farm. There's no
Okay,
other way.
Absolutely. I'll see you.
Oh, there. Part
Oh,
part
that
two
was
comes live from
Fishing for the
Beekman
invite,
Farms.
and I'll be there. So thank you so much. And that's a wrap on the rapid ridiculousness.
All right, that's
that.
the pregame. But before we get into the questions, can you just spend a little bit of time telling our audience what is Beekman 1802 in its current rendition today?
So right now we're primarily a beauty company, although we create products with local artisans in all different categories, from home to food to garden to everything. But we're primarily known as a beauty company, and it started. We started in 2008. We bought a farm in upstate New York. We were two New York City guys. Brent was a physician. I was an ad guy, and we bought a farm like just on a weekend getaway, sort of like on a whim.
Because we were super obnoxious, and
Yeah, we were like those Manhattanites. Like our friends were buying beach houses, and we're like, we're going to be even cooler, and we're going to buy a farm.
because this was 2006 when mortgages were free. They're just handing them out on the street.
Absolutely.
And so we thought we can take out $1 million mortgage and buy this empty farm in 3.5 hours from the city to use on the weekends.
So we bought the farm, and it was great. It was fun. Our friends would come up, and we took in a neighboring farmer who was losing his farm. His name was Farmer John, and he had 80 goats, and he said, "You've got an empty barn. Can I come bring my goats?" And we're like, "Yeah, this will be fun." And it was great until 2008, and the recession hit, and both Brent and I lost our jobs within 1 month of each other, and we didn't know how we were going to pay the mortgage, and we Googled online, what can we make with goat milk? And the first thing that came up with was soap. And we started making goat milk soap and other beauty products with our neighbors around our dining room table. And then we started meeting different artisans in our region who, like blacksmiths and weavers and potters and all these amazing artisans who were making incredible goods, but they didn't know how to market them, or they didn't have a market for them. So we created Beekman 1802 originally to not only sell our own products, but sell the products of all the artisans in our region. So that's how we grew. And because we started making the products with our neighbors, we started calling all of our customers neighbors too, all one big neighborhood. So we always say we grew our company neighbor by neighbor by neighbor. And that's why, well, even probably during this interview, we never use the word customer in our company. We always say neighbor. So when you hear us say neighbor, we don't mean our actual neighbors, it's our customers.
Gotcha.
I love that.
That's fantastic. That answers my question.
Oh, go ahead.
I said that answers my first question is how, given you were in the ad space, you were a doctor, like, what do you just say? Like, hey, you want to buy a farm? Like, what's that conversation look like? And that now we know.
Yeah. We were just two naive New York City people, and wanted to buy a weekend place, and that's how it started.
Unbelievable.
So talk about how Beekman 1802. How did you differentiate between your massive competitors from, in the midst of a consumer-driven world? Here you have this farm that you just were forced to turn into a business. How did you take those first couple steps to differentiate?
Well, when we first started making the goat milk soaps, this was really before kind of the whole kind of cottage industry thing started taking off. It was really in the very early days of Etsy even. So there wasn't a lot of home business type stories out there. But obviously during the last recession, there were a lot of people who were starting over in their careers, which is what propelled the growth of Etsy and, lots of things like that. And so when we first started making the soap, I thought, well, where can we position this product where it doesn't already exist? I mean, obviously there were a lot of other small batch soap makers who were selling at farmers markets and in little shops and, things like that. And I said, well, why don't I go to the city and try to sell our soaps in some of the luxury stores? And so I did some kind of cold calling, basically knocking on doors. At the time, I went to Bergdorf Goodman, I went to Barney's, I went to Henry Bendel, all of the luxury department stores in Manhattan. And Henry Bendel said, you know what, we'll take a chance on you. We won't bring in your product, but if you will come, this was in the fall, they said, if you will come over holiday season and stand on the floor and sell your product, we'll give you a shot. And so that autumn, from October all the way through Christmas, I would get on the train at 5 o'clock in the morning in Albany with all my soaps, and I would take it down to New York City. I would unload everything, go over to Henry Bendel, which is on Fifth Avenue, and they had a little table there, and I would set up and I would tell the story of the soaps to anybody who walked by. And that's really how we got our start. So every day for 8 weeks, that's what I did. Got up every morning at 5:30, worked on that floor until 9 o'clock when they closed, got on the train, took the 3.5 hour journey back up to the farm, and did that. And it was just very fortuitous because two things actually happened during that holiday season. One was that the beauty editor for Vanity Fair came through and heard the story and ultimately did a little profile of us in Vanity Fair magazine. And the head beauty buyer from Anthropology came through and heard the story and said, oh, we want to bring your products into Anthropology. And that was really the two big things that put us on the map.
So how did you transition from that? Was it a big leap to go from there to QVC and Home Shopping Network?
Oh, it was many years.
I mean, it was
many years.
It was a long journey, and we've just grown organically, which a lot of companies don't do nowadays. Like people have this weird idea of how business operates, that you have to go out and you can't even do anything until you get investment. And we, like my grandparents were entrepreneurs and small business people. Everybody in my family were small business people. And I didn't even know there was another way of doing business. For us, it was like, if you sell a bar of soap for $2 and you have $1 profit, well, then you put that $1 back in your company, and then you can, make 3 bars of soap and sell those. This idea of like taking out a lot of credit and like blowing yourself up was crazy. So we literally grew step by step by step from smaller vendors to larger, to mid-sized to larger vendors. And we've been profitable since day one. This was the other thing. I'm like, how do you start a business without making a profit? How do you keep going?
Well, and by profitable, we weren't paying ourselves a salary. You know, we were, growing our own food on the farm, so we were able to.
But we weren't trying to raise money from other people.
Right, and we went for, the company is now almost 12 years old, and for the first 8 years, we never paid ourselves a salary. We kept hiring the team that we needed to take us to the next level, or to fill gaps in our own knowledge base, because we were always about investing in the company before we invested in ourselves. We had enough confidence in ourselves that we could eventually get to the point we needed. But I think, like a lot of entrepreneurs experience, you have to go through some very lean times. And we were very fortunate that we lived on a farm. We could grow our own food and those types of things. So we were able to survive some very lean times. And I think that's, having started the company in the midst of the last recession, which was basically, if people can remember, back in 2008, everything was built on all of this weak foundation, right? There are all of these cheap mortgages and all of these financial instruments.
Junk debt.
Right.
Junk debt.
And so I think part of our approach to business and building a good foundation came because we were founded in a recession. And we were very keen on not creating a business that was so shaky. And that's why, you said at the top of the show, we are anti-Shark Tank, because the whole Shark Tank culture that grew out of 2008 was this whole venture capital, private equity driven business model, where you come up with an idea and then you get someone else to fund it. And, lo and behold, look where we are now. Like we hit a pandemic, and literally within 2 weeks of businesses being shut down, businesses are going out of business. They're going bankrupt after 2 weeks of not having business. And that's because you don't actually have a business. If you can't survive 2 weeks of a downturn or a stoppage of your business, you don't actually have a business with a foundation.
Right.
So that leads me
how to get
another question I had. Sorry, John. So I know you guys do a ton of events, like at the farm and in downtown Sharon Springs. So being everything that we just went through, how are you guys going to be able to pivot through your normal events that you have, that you have thousands of people that show up for?
Yep.
Well, I mean, creativity is key in any business. So, but even the step before that is diversifying. So our business is in several channels. Some channels have been devastated by this. We deal with small wholesale mom and pop gift stores across the country. Those, of course, have been devastated. They've been closed. So that channel of our business just went to zero. Our brick and mortar mercantile in Sharon Springs, again, closed, went to zero.
Yeah.
Our TV retail channel, HSN QVC, has actually done better because people are at home shopping. And our e-commerce, of course, has done better. So we were very mindful about keeping diversified through this, through our entire growth of our company, which has helped stabilize us through these specific times.
And the primary reason that we always have done experiences based around the farm and in Sharon Springs was to bring people into Sharon Springs. Those big events weren't necessarily critical to our bottom line, but they were so critical to our community. And we're we're just very devoted to our community, because when we were first starting out, had it not been for those neighbors in our own little community helping us, we would have never been able to build a business. And so we're very devoted to helping sustain things in Sharon Springs. And one of the things that we're getting ready to start right now is a project to help some of the local small restaurants in our community who obviously they've been shut down, and because tourism is going to be probably very slow this summer, we wanted to utilize the farm to help out some of the restaurants in town. So what we're going to do is we're going to host evenings on the farm where the restaurants cater for a small group of people, so we can do social distancing. And these people get to come and have dinner on the farm, and we're calling it the world's largest restaurant. Because you have 60 acres, and there'll be tables spread out across the farm, and then the business and the small restaurants in town get the proceeds from the sale of the tickets to come to the event on the farm. So until we get back to that point where we can do large scale events, we're going to try to figure out all the small ways that we can still bring people into Sharon Springs, because when they come to visit us or come to our store, they visit all the stores and the restaurants and the gas station and everything else that we have in Sharon Springs.
That's a great
That's
idea.
awesome.
Awesome.
So you mentioned about retail and home shopping and e-commerce kind of all shifting, during this time. If you were to start over, or you'd be advising a new consumer-driven company, let's say after COVID, pandemic is over, what would be sort of the trajectory of focus of e-commerce, or trying to get retail distribution or home shopping network distribution, or e-commerce retailers like Amazon, Walmart? Do you have an idea of sort of what order of operations you'd take, or you'd suggest somebody else take?
Well, definitely e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
I would say probably e-commerce and Amazon. TV retail has been fabulous for us. It's very hard. There's only 24 hours in a day, so there's only so many brands that they can get in there. So the likelihood of success is pretty small on those channels. But with e-commerce and Amazon, obviously the barriers to entry are much lower. And if you have the resources where you can figure out the marketing and figure out how to work the systems, then that's always going to be your best bet for the future. You want to be able to control that.
But I would also say put brick and mortar in there. In the beginning, we had never planned on doing a brick and mortar store. We started with e-commerce, and then we rented out a storefront on the main street in Sharon Springs just as a space to ship things out of. And we thought, well, we have this space, we'll just put up some shelves, and if people want to come. But it's been the most valuable real estate for us, because it becomes your brand experience world, and it's sort of like a living focus group for our neighbors to come and live the brand in a different way than you do just purely e-commerce or purely social media. So I think having a physical place that your brand can call home can be some of your most powerful marketing.
I love the fact that despite how big you guys have gotten, that you've kept the storefront in Sharon Springs small and quaint, and you stayed with the theme of the downtown area there. Like, it wasn't turned into some big box store. I mean, I know it gets a little crowded in there sometimes, but it was just awesome that you kept it in sync with everything else there.
Yeah, no, we love Sharon Springs, and we hope Beekman Mercantile is there for 100 years.
So you talked a little bit about being DIY founders, right? You did the typical entrepreneurial thing, which was your back was up against the wall, and you made lemonade out of those lemons that 2008 dropped on all of us. So can you describe the transition between or from being a do-it-yourself founder, surviving, to then leading and delegating to a team of over 100 employees? I mean, what did that transition look like from a mental state as entrepreneurs, and what did that do for your business once that transition started to happen, where you're now giving responsibility out to your loyal employees?
I think the first step is the hardest. Like, hiring the first employee is the hardest. because when you started out, you're a small business, and you're like, oh, I can barely afford to pay my electric bill, and now I'm going to give some of what I'm taking to somebody else. So that first step is a big hurdle. Like that first hire is a big hurdle. If you have chosen correctly, then immediately after that first hire, you realize the need for another hire, because you get so much value if you have hired the right person. And I think the problem that a lot of entrepreneurs, the trap that they fall into, is that they try to do everything out of necessity or just because they like to have the control. But very, very few people are good at everything, right? And if you are expending your passion, whatever the passion was that made you create your business, on some of the more menial tasks of business, whether it's the bookkeeping, whether it's the marketing, things that aren't necessarily your skill set, then that means you're devoting time away from the passion portion of it that inspired you to do it in the first place. And with any business, if that passion doesn't stay there, the business is not going to be successful.
But I think that's also part of the reason why we're sort of against the idea of getting a big chunk of investment money and then having to spend it right away, because that's not what we did. And we grew it very organically. We went from the 2 of us to 3 employees, to 5 employees, to 10, to 20, to 30. We didn't go from the 2 of us to 100 because we had to spend $10 million from somebody else's money. And in doing that process, we learned a lot about how our business worked. Because if all of a sudden tomorrow somebody gives you $10 million and says you need to, hire a department, you then start copying other businesses. You say, okay, I need a marketing department, I need finance, I need, inventory warehouse. So you start building your company just like everybody, all your competition. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you've only got $10 million and they have $1 billion. So you're trying to create a mirror image of someone you can't compete with. Where we grew from 2 of us, then we had to hire a 3rd person who did a little bit of marketing and a little bit of inventory and worked the front counter. Yeah. And then, and then 5 people so our company didn't just grow by person organically, it grew departmentally organically too.
And actually the very first person we ever hired is still with the company.
In a totally different job.
And totally, she's been through every job.
Who was it? What job did she have, and what does she do now?
Her name is Megan, and she started out as basically our right hand. She was COO, Chief Operating Officer, and that was just when it was the 3 of us. And she has since. Basically, I don't know how many different positions
she's done everything.
But now
she manages the
entire farm property. So every event that happens on the farm, every improvement that happens on the farm, she.
But it was at one point it was just the 3 of us being like, "What is this QuickBooks and how does it work?"
But I will say it really does depend on the type of business that you are trying to run and what your exit strategy is for that business. Because not everyone is like our business. Some people want to create a business and get out of the business very
quickly. I disagree with you. You don't. If you create a business with an exit plan, you're not creating a business. You're creating an exit plan.
But there are some types of business that are more trend driven, like you're going to capture the market really quickly, and then the market's going to die off or whatnot. We were always very long term oriented. We, from the very beginning, we wanted to create a company that would outlive us, that could still help sustain Sharon Springs, that could help sustain the farm, long after we were gone. So we always had kind of a long-term perspective on what we were trying to accomplish. But every business is not like that. It doesn't mean it's a wrong way to approach business. It's just businesses are different and mindsets are different.
Mm-hmm. So talk about that a little bit, because Josh, you're saying that a business with an exit plan isn't a business. Can you just talk about maybe the different mindsets and where some suffering might happen to somebody who's trying to flip a business, essentially, to somebody like you both that are trying to build something of substance that grows? I mean, where can somebody who's trying to build a brand, let's say, to then just go and sell it, what might they miss?
I mean, I think it's perfectly fine to say, I would like to retire someday and I would like to sell my company. I think that's a viable.
For a lot of people, that is the end
thing.
goal. Yeah.
But the idea of I need to start a company so I can sell it, and if you have the same idea at the same moment, to me, that's not real business. That's sort of just.
Well, it's a type of business.
No, that's like financial trickery.
Arbitrage.
Yeah. So, if you're going to start a business, you need to see if it can operate as a business. But at the same time, the reason those kind of day one exit plan things happen is because there were people out there willing to buy those companies. Probably less so today than there was a few months ago. But again, I don't see that as a challenge. If you're just starting something to sell it, you're not actually proving that you can build a business or that you have a business. You're just proving that you can sell a business.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me. I think it's interesting, the dynamic, obviously, like partnership and being a couple and being together and building something together, right? I'm very interested in that. One of my biggest dreams is like to build a business with my partner. I don't think there's anything better than like, that's your, there's the trust, everything's there, right? We hope. So it's like a two-part question. What, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but for people watching, you obviously did the reality TV thing. You went into that world, which is a very elaborate, for anyone that doesn't know, it's a very elaborate, produced world. How did that impact your actual world where the business operates and your relationship? And like, how does that piece actually affect your business and your life in reality? And then the second part is, how does it like, what do you learn about each other? Like, because you will learn about each other through business. So what have you learned about each other? And that's the second part of the question.
Well, first of all, we'll address reality TV. When we did the show, The Fabulous Beekman Boys, it was really kind of at the very beginning of reality TV.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on a very small network called Planet Green, which was very earnest. And they called it a docu-series.
Mm-hmm.
And they really approached it more as a documentary where they were just really following our lives. Because again, at the time, right after the recession, so many people were starting over mid-career. And so they just wanted to capture that. Reality TV has subsequently evolved into something much different. It's very scripted, and it's all about the drama of it.
Yeah.
People always ask, people who were fans of the Fabulous Beekman Boys always ask, "Oh, are you ever going to go back and do TV?" No one would want our show. Like nobody would do our show now because there wasn't enough drama, there wasn't enough fighting and excitement and throwing wine and that type of thing. So we probably won't. But we did learn in the course of our business a lot about ourselves and what our strengths and weaknesses were. And very early on, we created what we call the 51% rule. And the 51% rule was that whatever one of us was the most passionate about, and it could be
a creative decision, a business decision,
or what we're having for dinner
anything.
that night. Like it could be anything, but whatever one of us was the most passionate about, one person automatically got 51% of that decision.
And we don't hash it out beforehand. You just sort of know.
You
And
kinda know.
everybody with their, who has a spouse knows, who has that little bit more passion for that decision than you do. And it doesn't mean we don't fight. Like we fight right
No,
up
we
to
lay,
that
we
50,
lay out our argument.
right out to that 50%, but then that 51% person has the final say. And that really ended so many fights for us.
And that's the key. You have to figure out
You
how
have to be
you're
able to
gonna
get
into
out of a
fights.
fight.
Yeah.
Anybody can get into a fight. You have to figure out how to get out of a fight. And so that was our way of getting out of disagreements.
And I remember in the first 6 or 7 years of the company when finances were so tight and we still had this huge mortgage on the farm. So we're trying to launch the business and figure out how to pay off the mortgage on the farm. And so obviously a lot of my fights were around finances. And so it finally got to the point where I said, I just cannot have these same arguments every single day. And so I gave all of that over to Josh. So even to this day, I don't look at the bank statements. I don't look at the ledgers. I don't look at anything because I just know it's going to be a potential argument. If he wants to be most passionate and worry about those daily numbers,
Right.
I will let him do that, because otherwise it would just be constant like this every single day.
That's so incredibly funny, because my wife and I had a similar discussion, I don't know, a few months ago. We actually own several businesses together, and we had, it's the same thing. You call it the 51% rule. Ours was basically, if somebody is so passionate about something that they're doing, the other person doesn't have a right to come in and tell them how to do it, because that's where a lot of our arguments or disagreements were coming up. Is, I might be passionate about this one thing, and then she would come in and say, no, well, do it this way. It's way easier. And then it's telling the other person how to do it. So it's similar in that if you're passionate about something and this is your project or the thing that you care about, no matter how small it is, whether it's the way you do the dishes or the way we're spending money, that if that's that person's passion or trigger point, then the other person doesn't have, the right in our relationship to shove ourselves in there and tell them how to do it. So
it's so important. I think that,
and it works.
It does. And I think, it sounds like this is exactly what you do, is that even if you are the passionate person on one particular project or one particular business, you can't let your passion blind you from being open-minded. Right. So you have to listen and hear and take in all the way up to that 50%. Like, you have to hear, because there might be an idea there that you're blinded by. Mm-hmm. But then ultimately someone has to, to make that decision. But you do have to listen.
It is really, having a business with your partner, and people always say, would you recommend that? And I honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's really hard, but it's similar to, we don't have children, so our business is our child, and you're equally intertwined with it. And I remember one time we had this huge argument. We were sitting in the car in our driveway screaming at each other, and I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna quit. And then we both realized, we can't quit. Like, everything we have is wrapped up.
That was yesterday.
There's no quitting.
That was yesterday.
And it's literally similar to having a child. You can't just get a child back. It's like, we have employees, we have
It's too big.
No way
coming back.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So for all the people out there that are going to start businesses with their partner, other than the 51% rule, which they know about now, what would you number one advice to say? Okay, you know what? I know you said you don't like when you say go for it, but if people are going to do it, what's the number one thing? Like, this is what you got to do, and everything's going to be okay.
Okay, parallel path it. Everyone always says, "Oh, I'd love to do what you do and leave the corporate life behind and start my own." Well, we didn't really do that. We lost our jobs, but then I also wound up going back to work for a period of time to supplement our income and have a backup plan. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to do it, make sure you have a parallel path. Don't both of you quit your jobs at once and start this thing. Somebody keep your benefits.
Right. Somebody be the stable one.
Yes.
Yeah. You need health insurance.
and then apply the 51%, and then you're good.
Yeah.
So we have some entrepreneurs, some wantrepreneurs, some people thinking about starting a business. Obviously, COVID shook some stuff up, but you already spoke and taught us a lot about the financing, the venture capital model, and building something with your hands and really turning that into a business as being, your preference. If you're advising a startup, can you talk about, how do they fund their business? Like, how do they take a product idea that they have? I don't know. Let's just use, my brother's an engineer. He actually lost his job during COVID because the company was actually in that exact venture capital cycle that you were talking about, right? And so that's the company shut down because of that. He's an engineer. He's got these product ideas, 3D printers, all that kind of stuff, right? So how does somebody like that fund a business? And then what do the stages look like? Does financing come in, and what might that look like? What are some options that you would give to a startup?
Well, I think that obviously that answer changes for every type of business. Like for something that it sounds like he wants to do, where he's creating a piece of actual technology, hard equipment, that's going to be a lot of money up front. So he's going to probably need somebody to help fund that, unless he happens to have made a fortune being an engineer.
Or partner, just partner.
Right, or partner with somebody. That's a very expensive business to try to get up and running. But again, I think if you are taking on a partner who's going to be the financial instrument to your business, just make sure that you're both on the same page as to what you need to accomplish from the business. And I think most of the people who are venture capitalists or are part of private equity, they're either very wealthy themselves, or they have very wealthy friends who have created this fund. And there are people who have so much money that they're gambling with it. That's basically what any private equity or venture capitalist is doing, is that they're gambling with their money. And they know going into it that, 9 out of the 10 investments that they make are going to fail, because the one investment is going to, be the jackpot. Like, it's going to be the 3 cherries, it's going to be the 21, it's going to be the jackpot that makes up for all the other losses. It's all gambling. And if you're a small business who's taking in that venture capital money, you have to go in with that mindset that you might be one of the 9 losers, and you have to understand that going into it. And as Josh says, have your plan B or your plan C or plan D. You just have to know what you're getting into.
And I would say, like, I don't have anything against, outside investment. If there's a partner that is actually truly partnering with you, that's not just handing you money,
right,
and it can help you accomplish something that you truly cannot accomplish on your own, that's a great partner. That's a strategic partner. So that's a great partner. But I would say, if you're starting a business, try to create the most manageable, self-funded, purest, smallest version of that company that you can on your own. We learned to code. We learned to code our first e-commerce site. We learned to take product photography. We learned how to manufacture the product ourselves. So we created the smallest, purest little company making bars of soap. We didn't anticipate that we were going to be a lifestyle brand, with hundreds of, over 1,000 SKUs, to a huge market. We created a very pure company so we could see if there was proof of concept. Did the customer, did our neighbors spark to it? Was there a spark that could be fanned into a flame? If your whole idea is just to start a big giant company, you never see if you had a spark that you can fan, that actually will ignite and take hold. You're just trying to throw gas everywhere and set it on fire.
Yeah. I got one question. I know Rob has one final question before we close out, but you guys are successful. You've built it tooth and nail, hands in the dirt over the course of the past, I think, 12 years, you said. Is there something that you can trace your success, the brand success, your success as founders? Is there something you can trace back to that made that happen? Whether it's something internally with you, something that people see at the brand, what is the thing?
I'll go. I don't know if we have a different answer to this or not, but I always say that desperation is the best motivation. And, we were at a point, as you said earlier, where our backs were against the wall. And when your back is against the wall, and if you're a creative person, you figure out how to get your back off of that wall. And I think that's how we always have approached business. Those first few years of the company, we never said no. We always tried to look at the opportunity that came to the door and figured out how to make the most of that opportunity. And I'll just give an example. When Anthropologie came to us and they placed their first big order, which was 20,000 bars of soap, we said, yes, we'll do it. Not even thinking about how we were going to hit the margins that they wanted us to have, because going into retail store, we ended up making on that first 20,000 bars of soap 2 cents a bar. We made 2 cents per each of those bars of soap. But you know what it did? Because we were in a store like Anthropologie, which had a certain cachet to it, which had a certain type of clientele, it elevated our brand just a little bit more. And then, you know what, we struck that same deal with somebody else, like with Williams-Sonoma. You know, Williams-Sonoma wanted us to do a project. We made virtually no money off of the project we did with Williams-Sonoma, but they were such a good partner in helping exposing our brand to the type of clients that we needed.
The social proof was there.
That's right. And so I think, you know, always
always be hungry.
Always be hungry. Be willing to say yes, and be willing to, I guess, I don't want to say sell yourself short, but figure out how to take an opportunity that may not look financially lucrative to you, but make it lucrative to you in some other way. That's what we did.
That was actually, believe it or not, Ivana Trump, was that the first wife? Right, Ivana?
Yeah, Ivana, yeah.
That was
Ivana? Ivanka?
I get them all screwed up.
The first wife. She wrote a business, believe it or not.
She was very smart.
She was actually, and one of her pieces of advice was always be hungry, physically and
oh, that's right. She would starve herself at work.
Yeah.
She was hungry.
And I've always remembered that. I'm like, there's something to that. But I would say, just looping back to the beginning, you know, the advice we have is work hard, never quit, help your neighbor. And work hard and never quit, that's easy. We all understand that. But it's that help your neighbor part that sounds really fluffy, but it's incredible business advice because it just implies fairness across the board. So, you know, being fair to our customers from day one has kept them, our loyalty and engagement. You know, we have 12-year-old customers. What kind of CPG company has a 12-year-old customer or you know, customer for 12 years? But at the same time, it's treating our business partners fairly. We've never tried to get an edge over a business partner. So that part of helping our neighbors, I'd guess to say that we probably have never worked with anybody as a business partner that wouldn't work with us again, or that we wouldn't want to work with again.
And I think that is important from, if you're talking about a CPG company, is that you first have to realize that you're in business because of your customer. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. So you make your customer happy first before you make yourself happy. You make your customer happy. And just really work on building that community of people. And we always say we will never produce a product that a neighbor would not want to tell someone else about. And if you always try to think of it that way, like how is that customer going to be the marketing engine for you, then you know you're going to have a good business because you put everything into the quality of the product.
Right.
Fantastic. So before I ask the last question, I'm interested in helping your neighbors. So we'll reach out to you separately and find out how we can buy tickets for the dinner event at the farm for sure. So
thank you
about that. All right, last question. So while you're painting us a picture of what the next 3 to 5 years is going to look like for you guys, tell us about, is that a new product line? What does that look like? What are you excited about next?
Well, you know, every day is exciting, of course. The next big thing that we have launching tomorrow, actually, well, I don't know, it'll be a week past after this probably actually is edited. But we are launching our first products with CBD. And we're super excited by that because we're actually working with a farm in Hudson, New York, that grows all of the organic CBD hemp that we're using to extract the CBD. So we get to help support another farm, a female-owned farm,
and then
and ensure the purity of the product.
And in August, we're launching with our first large national brick and mortar retailer.
Yeah, that's big.
So that's kind of our.
We can't even mention it until July.
Nice.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, but that's big.
It's a major distribution. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for taking time out of your very busy day to spend with us and our audience here. We're very grateful. But before we sign off, tell our listeners and viewers the best place to go for more Beekman 1802. And then one thing you'd like to leave with our audience today, you know, especially in this crazy time that we live in, some piece of advice or piece of motivation that you'd like to leave them with.
So best place to reach us always is beekman1802.com. You can find everything, you know, find all our products there. And my piece of advice is this is a time for all of us to be anxious. And we think of anxiety or anxiousness as a bad thing, but anxiety is basically your brain running through thousands of scenarios a second. And, you know, and 99.9% of them are going to fail, but one of them is going to be the solution. So don't look at the anxiety of this moment as a terrible thing. Look at it as your path to the future.
And I would say, you know, no one should forget that the backbone of the American economy is small business. If you're a small business owner, hang in there. If you can support small businesses, do it. Because if anything is going to help us rebuild after the, you know, the period we've just had, it's going to be the small business. So we applaud everybody out there who's listening to this, and, you know, keep up the good fight.
Amen.
Awesome.
And we applaud you. One more cheers. Thank you so much to everyone out there for listening. Thank you, Josh and Brent. Have a great day, fellas.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, everybody. As always, we are super appreciative for you listening. If you're listening on our podcast, any podcasting platform, or you're watching this, thank you so much for engaging with us, for helping us launch our own small business into a rocket ship. It means so much, and we love you. If you don't already, please subscribe to YouTube, Facebook, follow and share on Instagram and Twitter. As Josh and Brent said, social proof is the way that small businesses grow. And by subscribing and following and sharing, you're providing social proof to everyone else that we're either ridiculous and you love us, we're funny and you love us, we're educational and you love us, or maybe you just love us.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
And if you don't like
all
it,
of the
that's
above,
fine too. Just do it anyway. You know, just
subscribe anyways.
Just do it. Like, okay, you know what? Like, it's okay. It's all good.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right.
So we'll be here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Wherever you're consuming this content. We have new episodes coming out weekly. So we hope you enjoy. And to everyone out there, cheers to life and business. May you prosper in both.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, fellas.
Have a good night.